You're not behind. You're not late. You are in the exact same boat as almost every other human being on the planet right now who has this sense that they're behind in life. And the reason why I know that you're struggling with this is, first of all, this is a universal experience in life. I have felt this in my life. My kids who are in their 20s have felt this in their life. My husband has felt this at various ages. But more importantly, I'm seeing your messages that are flooding into the inbox at melrobbins.com. And it's kind of startling, the number of you that are writing in, saying, I just feel lost. I feel behind in my life. And I so relate to that sentiment, but I didn't realize how many of you are feeling this right now. And so I'm like, we got to dig into this, and we got to not just kind of talk about it as a thematic thing. Let's do the research. Let's find the experts. Let's figure out what this sense of being behind in your life actually is. And this is such a common experience in life. It's so common, in fact, that there's a word for it. It's called the social clock. That is the technical name based on research for this sense that there's some invisible checklist that you're supposed to mark your success in life by. So let's talk about this concept of social clock. In the 1960s, there was a psychologist by the name of Bernice Newgarden, and she found that every single society has this invisible checklist for life milestones. You got to graduate from college by 22. You got to be married by 30. You got to have kids by 35. You're going to have your midlife crisis when you turn 50. You got to retire by 65. And here's an interesting note about 65 and retiring. Where do these numbers come from? Like, why do we all think we're supposed to do certain things by a certain time? Well, they come from societal norms. And what you're about to discover, this blew my mind when I dug into the research, is so many of the societal norms were determined like 50 to 100 years ago when life was different. In fact, life expectancy was completely different. So that kind of general notion that you should retire at the age of 65, check this out. You want to know when that became, quote, the social clock or the invisible checklist? 1935. 1935 was when the Social Security Act happened, and it created this moment in time at the age of 65 where Social Security was a thing. That's when you were supposed to retire. And we all were just like, okay. And then we set the social clock at 65, and then we all live our lives as if we're supposed to retire at 65. Says who? I guess everybody. Since 1935. Isn't that kind of dumb? That we have this stupid age where we're supposed to do something by? That's what this concept of social clock is. That if you follow the clock and you're a freshman at 18 and not 20, you're, quote, on time. But if you're not following the clock and you retire at 75, you're off time. If you haven't had kids by the time you're 30, if you haven't met the one by the time you're in your late 20s, that you're off time, you're falling behind. That's where this sense that you're falling behind comes from. And what I'm going to prove to you today is that the timeline that is in place, that your parents live by, that your grandparents live by, that your friends are all following, that you are feeling all this pressure around, it's completely made up. And it was also made up when life was totally different. And, you know, I want to bring in another researcher that I absolutely love. This is research from Dr. Robert Waldinger's book, The Good Life, Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study on Happiness. Now, Dr. Robert Waldinger, he has been on this podcast. He's absolutely fantastic. And he actually writes about this idea of a social clock and how it screws us all up. It makes us unhappy. It makes us feel like we're falling behind or we're losing in life. So Dr. Waldinger takes Bernice Newgarden's research about this social clock even a step further, because he says it's not just society and things like we got to retire at 65 or we got to graduate by the time we're 18 that put pressure on us. But there's also social clocks that you may feel based on your upbringing or based on influences like your friends or news or social media or movies. They create this sense that, oh my gosh, okay, that's what other people are doing right now, so that's what I need to be doing right now. And Dr. Waldinger writes about the fact that there are these key events in everybody's life, like when do you leave a childhood home? When are you going to enter into a committed long-term relationship? Are you having kids? And if so, at what age? When are you buying a house? That these can also have a cultural value based on where you were raised, based on where you grew up, based on your religion, based on your grandparents and your parents' personal history. That is what creates the sense that you're off time, because you're not, quote, on time based on your parents' expectations or based on what your friends are doing or based on what is sort of valued in the culture that you grew up in. It's not that being off time is stressful in and of itself. What makes it stressful is the fact that you don't think you're meeting the expectations that society or your parents or your friends have for you. That's what makes this so challenging. See, the sense of falling behind is based on falling behind to whom? Falling behind based on what? Falling behind based on whose expectations? When is the exact age that you should go to nursing school? When is the time limit for when you could apply to go back to school? Where's the time limit to you reinventing your career? Where's the time limit for where you can no longer get good with money? There isn't one. And that's why this whole notion that you're behind in life is a freaking joke. And it's time to stop playing into it. It can make you miserable because you may be making a major life decision right now because of approval, not based on what's going to make you happy. The pressure to be, quote, on time in life isn't the truth. It's social conditioning, and it ends today.